Yo, what's up? This is the first time I've done a YouTube video in a long time. I used to have a YouTube channel called Low Power. I need to get back on there and see what I can do with it. It was something that they did that just made it hard for me to get on my own. I couldn't even get on my own channel or something. It was just crazy. I couldn't even get on it. I couldn't even log on. It was something that they did. And I got into Facebook and kind of abandoned the channel. I had a lot of good stuff on there. Fishing videos, basketball, and all that good stuff. A little social commentary at the time. I wasn't really deep into the social commentary, but because it wasn't at that time blowing up like it has in the last few years. And like I said, I've been mostly on Facebook. But man, I'm just doing this video. The only reason I'm doing this video, I did have one on Facebook about this, but I just watched again one of these things about The Last Dance, and it seemed like the person who did the video had a bone to itch or whatever, a bone to pick, because of the way Scottie Pippen was supposedly treated. I felt like looking at a documentary, and when I hear the criticisms, everybody got a right to their opinion, but I started to realize that, people see things from such a slanted view that they really miss a lot. Because what this person was saying, I'm like, did you watch the actual documentary? It's like everybody was kind of focusing on bad things Michael Jordan said about Scottie Pippen. And my thing is, to me, the documentary was an even-handed documentary. To me, it didn't just show you all the great stuff about Jordan, show you some of the bad stuff. It also, it talked about, I think what people lost track of was the sense of The Last Dance was about the last season. So the last season of that championship, the reason why that team really broke up was because Scottie Pippen wasn't coming back. So Jordan didn't want to play without Scottie. And then you also had Phil one coming back. So it was like all this stuff that they did to break the Bulls up. And so a lot of the stuff that happened with Scottie came into play because of it was The Last Dance. It was really based on that last season. And, a lot of things Scottie did showed that he wasn't trying to come back, and then that they weren't trying to bring him back. So a lot of people lose a lot of focus on that part, and it's probably because though the documentary is a good documentary, that's the part where they kind of messed up in the documentary, because it was supposed to be about the last season. A lot of times it wasn't. So when you come back to it, it didn't tie in well. It didn't go away from and come back to the last season in a good fashion. It wasn't seamless. So that was the weakness of the documentary, But my thing is, I thought it was an honest documentary. It was honest about what was going on that season, how they felt about it. I think it wasn't about how Jordan felt today, but how he felt at the time when he talked about Scottie being selfish or whatever, and things like that. But they came back and showed that Jordan had Scottie's back, because he let me know, I'm not coming back if Scottie's not coming back. So that was all in there, all that showing the loyalty that Jordan had for Scottie, and for Scottie Pippen to focus on the bad. This showed to me that he was kind of what we thought he was before he became a star. He was somebody who was a naturally soft person on the inside. He was a soft guy, but he got tough. He had to get tough. But sometimes, after a while, you revert to that person who you really are. And I think that's what it is with him. He's kind of soft for him to take that take that he took away from it. That when they did his documentary, that he was going to come out unscathed, and that he should have, and it's ridiculous. I mean, to me, Jordan went out his way to praise Scottie Pippen. Documentary showed that Jordan needed his teammates. I don't know what people was watching when they was watching the documentary. So what it is that some people focused on certain parts of the documentary. And, it's not that the documentary didn't focus on anything bad about Jordan. It went into Jordan's gambling issue and all that stuff and him going away. It showed how the Bulls, did without Michael Jordan, how the team rallied, and Phil Jackson, how good coaching job he did, and how great Scottie was. They went out their way to say Scottie was great, and I always felt like, personally, I'm a guy who always felt like Scottie Pippen was overrated. I don't understand the logic that he was underrated. I don't understand where that comes from because at that time he was given all the props in the world. He made a top 50 players of all time list after only having like 3 good seasons, 3 star level seasons, 3 top-notch seasons, and he was already there, top 50 of all time. To me, I didn't think he belonged at that time. And part of me still don't. Part of me say, well, he won 6 championships, so you can't take it away from him. Because for me, Scottie took a while to become a great player. He was good for only. He was a great player for about 7 seasons. He played about 15 years. To me, he was good for half his career, and he was mediocre to average. I mean, he was mediocre the rest of his career. So for me, when it comes to Scottie Pippen, I just had different views on him. I feel like he overachieved and got overrated because of it. No one expected Scottie to be that good. So when he was that good, it was overstated how good he was. But anyway, so that's just what I wanted to say. These little things about Scottie Pippen. These people talking about the Last Dance and how bold they treated Scottie Pippen. I don't agree with that. I thought they did a great job of showing how important he was to the team, how he was kind of the good cop on that team, while Jordan was the bad cop. How much they leaned on him, and even in the Last Dance that last season, when Scottie missed all them games, how much they were struggling at first, and how much they even felt that they needed Scottie. And Jordan went out his way to jock Scottie Pippen, so I don't get that. Scottie Pippen's not an underrated player. To me, if anything, he's overrated. But during that time when they were winning championships, he made the All NBA teams, he made the All Star teams. They was talking about him being the second best player in the league or the best player in the league when he wasn't. But they were still giving him that type of credit. He made the Olympic team, the Dream Team. How was he underrated? In what way was he underrated? He gave him all the credit in the world for having 7 great years, but being mediocre the other 8 years. So I just don't go for that. I don't agree with that. Dude, there was nothing underrated about him. He got all the credit in the world in the 90s. Now, you might say, well, Jordan gets too much of the credit. I don't really get that because Jordan's the only guy who they do that with. Like, the best player on the team always get the lion's share of the credit. Always. Jordan the only guy they try to take away from by saying Pippen. He ain't do nothing without Pippen. It's just silly to me, man. Pippen was great. I understand how important he was for that team from a strategic standpoint, from that offense they ran, the triangle, the way he fit in there, and just being able to use him like a Swiss Army knife on defense gives a coach a lot to play with. So he was very important. Don't get me wrong, but he still won Michael Jordan. So um, so anyway, like I said, when I looked at that documentary, to me, that documentary, they let Horace Grant talk. Jordan had a problem with Horace Grant. Horace Grant got to say what he wanted to say. I mean, they showed negative things about Michael Jordan. Jordan showed negative things about himself. They actually talked about it, but people focus on what they want to focus on. Some people focused on all his greatness, while it was things showing how, as a teammate at the time, he could be overbearing and even disrespectful the way he used to talk to Scott Burrell. I think that's his name, Scott Burrell. It was just bold. It made him look bad. So some of that stuff made Jordan look bad. But it depends on what you want to focus on. So I just thought it was a kind of fair, even, and honest documentary where Jordan was just showing his honest feelings, how he saw things, and then whoever did the documentary still allow us to see the counter argument. Just like with Jay Cross, you got to see how badly they treated him and how that it didn't seem right. And then at the same time, you got to see how Jay Cross, you could see why they had issues with him at the same time. I mean, Jay Cross basically broke the team up. He said, I don't care what happened, Phil Jackson not coming back. So he wanted to do something different. So I thought it was a pretty even thing. Jay Cross looked bad, but he looked good at the same time. They showed that he the one that put that team together. And and it also showed that Scottie and Mike were really nasty to him in a very disrespectful way. And to me, that made them look bad. So to me, it was kind of honest. It was mostly based off from Jordan's perspective, and I'm cool with that because I want to see his perspective. We got to see how he think and how he saw things. But the fact that Scottie Pippen and other people want to focus on the negative that he showed about his teammates. Hey man, it's about being real. It's like people mad about what he said about the drugs in the first year. They want to call him a snitch. Nah, man, he being honest about what he saw, man. It was back in. We should be able to talk about that. So Michael Jordan should be able to talk about whatever he wants. He's the greatest player of all time. He earned that, man. He earned that. He's made these players millionaires. You got people making $40 million a year. Like, what's the guy's name? He just played for Memphis. Got him a $40 million a year contract, and he barely plays. What's his name? I can't forget. I forgot his name. Michael Conley. I mean, you got players. I mean, come on, man. All that because of Michael Jordan. So stop it. Stop the nonsense. Get over it, and actually go back and watch the documentary and see how even handed it is. Jordan gives Pippen all the credit in the world. And he was so loyal to Pippen that he wasn't willing to come back and try to win again without him. He wasn't gonna let the Bulls do Pippen like that and do Phil Jackson like that and use him. And so I just think that all was. I don't understand how people don't see that part of it. That Jordan really, even though he showed that negative part of Scottie Pippen, I think it was fair. We all saw that. We saw when Pippen did that. When Pippen refused to come in the game, that was horrible. He did a bad thing as a player. Who does that? He deserves to be. He deserves that. He deserves that to be talked about. That's something we don't talk about. So when we talk about Scottie Pippen, to me, I don't want to say underrated and all this bull. We don't want to talk about the negative of Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen wasn't that guy down the stretch. He has disappeared in moments, in big time moments in the playoffs. But y'all be wanting to use Scottie Pippen to distract from the fact that Jordan has won 6 championships. You want to give it all because you can't win without Scottie Pippen. I mean, Scottie Pippen was on his team for 10 years in his prime. Well, I mean, how was he gonna win it without Scottie Pippen? Scottie Pippen was on his team all the time. So it's just really silly. Um, so anyway, that's just my take. Peace.